about 30 minutes outside of Atlanta. You might hear the grass being mowed in the background, but I am on one of my great aunt's great properties. She's always had like these really big houses with really big land. The last time I visited her was 2 years ago, when I had moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and then right before I moved back, I came here just kind of as a refuge to just kind of make a decision on whether or not I was going to actually move back home to Louisiana. Definitely so many full circle moments have happened around my aunt and on this property here, and this is definitely one of the places that is important to me. Important to me spiritually. I gotta watch out for the buggies. It's important to me spiritually. It's important to my spiritual journey, and in fact, my aunt is a minister. Maybe not in the traditional sense, but basically her line of work is the reason why she has these big properties and whatnot isn't necessarily because she wants it. It's to share with other people. Basically, her life's work has been inviting people into her home and helping them basically get better, heal through addiction, and many other things that they may be struggling with, health issues, chronic health issues, etc., etc. So she kind of takes people in that may be broken or lost, or, like I said, going through something that is severe and tragic, and she gives them a space where they can just truly be stable and at peace and shed and heal. And how beautiful is that, right? So when I came here right before moving back home, it was definitely one of those type of moments, like moving. And I talk about moving back home a little bit here and there, but moving back home to Louisiana was definitely one of the most humbling things that I've ever had to do in my life, because I moved away to a bigger city, and in a way I kind of felt like, okay, this is my breakthrough. I finally made the breakthrough I've been waiting for, because it's been hard, like ever since before the pandemic. But the pandemic, a lot of people say it just kind of ripped the band-aid off the wound, and you had to really deal with yourself, right? So when you feel like you finally made a breakthrough, and then you have to kind of come down off that high back to reality and realize this is not the breakthrough, this might just be a stepping stone, it hits a little different. I didn't want to move back home, but I had to, because basically the reason I moved away from home had been accomplished, and that's what I had to realize. Spirit's assignment for me to move was not for me to stay. Now, I'm not saying that I will be in Louisiana for the rest of my life. I don't know about that, but when it's time for me to make that big leap again, I definitely will. And hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll be just for me, and it'll be to a place that I really, really dream of. Because where I moved was not necessarily my dream place. It just happened to be an opportunity. And so I took it. A transformation happened that was necessary, but it was just a part of me getting to the next step. I could go on off topic on a tangent, but I definitely came here today to deliver a specific message, because this is something that I've come across a lot. Today I want to talk about insecurity, and I want to give you signs you may be insecure, even if it's just a little bit, right? We all have those things that we struggle with. We all have doubts. We all have fears. But when you let that take over yourself and you become a monitoring spirit, when you become a hating spirit, when you can't identify that maybe some of the people that you're talking about, some of the people who you gossip about, some of the people who you hate on are the very people who may be paving a path for you. They may be lighting the torch for you, but because them living in their light, them living authentically, them shining and being unapologetic sets you off in a way that you may not understand, you are quick to judge, you're quick to critique, you're quick to misinform. Your jealousy and your envy is really what's being exposed. You're not exposing anything about anybody except yourself. And this is what a lot of people who have insecurities or struggle with insecurity don't understand about themselves. The only thing you're doing is revealing more and more stuff that you need to work through. So a lot of times in spiritual spaces, in spiritual communities, insecurities are talked about as shadow work or a shadow version of yourself that you maybe need to do some digging or some uncovering to really get to the root of why this shadow version of you keeps exposing themselves and maybe keeps sabotaging opportunities to make new connections or become more abundant or whatever it may be. So the reason that I'm making this video is because I've had a lot of insecure friends. I've had a lot of insecure people in different work environments I've been in, my parents, and also other people in my family as well. You know, when you are tapped in spiritually, you begin to see people and things differently. So sometimes, you know, insecurity can pop out in the comments that are made to you. Insecurity can pop out in facial expressions. I've just, over the years, I've been around a lot of people where my light has triggered them in a way. You know, me showing up, me embracing myself fully has triggered somebody else. And it's caused me to really try to, I've had to sit back and question, is it me? Is it something about me? Through working with my ancestors, through working with my guides and just tapping in and connecting with God, I've been able to identify when it's not me and when it's really just a personal battle and something that person needs to work through. And that's what I'm getting ready to share with you right now. So for me, the top indicators of insecurity is, number one, you find offense in too many things. Okay, we're going to dive into each one after I go through the list. For those of you who, you know, y'all got a short attention span, hey, I'm going to give you the reasons right up top. Number two, you have to prove things to people. Number three, you aim to humble and belittle people or bring them down a notch. Number four, you are extremely competitive. Number five, you give up on your ideas too quick or you easily place them on the back burner. Number six, you wait for external cues to motivate you and or validate your dreams and desires. And number seven, you're always borrowing, quote unquote, other people's ideas instead of just following your own. Okay, so these are my top indicators of insecurity, and I'm gonna talk about why these are indicators of insecurity. I'm also gonna talk about how you can really work through that shadow side of needing constant validation and rejecting yourself and all of those things that we love to talk about in spirituality, but we may feel like we need a ritual, we need a bath, we need all these different things to do, when really it's just the actions and the thoughts that need to change in the first place. I'm not saying I am against a spiritual bath, a ritual, because I still do them to this day. However, as I get deeper and deeper into my spirituality, even as someone who's uninitiated into a practice, it's been pointed out to me that some of those solutions, as such as a bath and a spell, can be very topical. And even if you do those things, there's still an assignment for you. You still have work to do. And some of us don't want to hear that. Some of us don't want to face ourselves. Let me say that again. Some of us just want to buy the entire stock of candles that a spiritual shop can sell us. Some of us want to take all the baths in the world, but we don't want to really tap into the psychological and the emotional work that needs to be done and embodied on a daily basis. So let's go ahead and dive into that first topic. And let me just say this disclaimer. If any of these things jump out at you, if you feel triggered by any of these messages that I'm delivering in regards to insecurity, that's your assignment, okay? It's not an attack, it's your assignment. So now is the time to take that energy and get to work. Because a lot of us, we get stuck on the trigger. It's time to move past the trigger. Because you know how many triggers I've had to move past to be able to even deliver a message like this? If you find offense and let me not say everybody, but every time you come across somebody dressed a certain way, you have to say something about it. If somebody is wearing too much makeup all the time, just all the time, if somebody is always talking too much, they talk too much. Everybody you come across just talk too much. Everybody you come across is weird. I'm laughing now, but I hate a person that everybody's weird except them. Y'all ever come across somebody like that person, they weird. Everybody's weird except them. One thing that living away taught me is that it's not where you are, it's who you are. So you can change your environment 100 times. If you're still the same person, you might actually be the problem. You can get in and out of relationships with so many different people romantically, and if you're still coming across the same problems, you might be the problem. You can get new friends over and over and over again. Eventually, there's something that you're going to have to face in yourself, even if it's not necessarily a character flaw. It may be a decision-making flaw, right, that you need to fix. So, all of that to say, I've been around people who, everywhere, it doesn't matter what setting we're in, they're gonna find somebody who's doing too much. Everything's a problem. It doesn't matter where they are, who they're around, they're gonna find somebody to talk about. They're gonna find something negative to say about somebody who's doing too much. They're so offended, they're so invested in what this other person is doing and saying and how they're expressing themselves, and they just have to comment on it or shut it down. To me, that is one of my top indicators of insecurity, because somebody who's more secure in themselves doesn't feel the need to comment or critique everything that crosses their path, because it doesn't matter all the time. What that person wears, how they do their hair, their makeup, how they express themselves, how vocal or non-vocal they are, is not going to make or break anything about you unless you have a personal relationship or connection with them. And I understand we're all opinionated to some degree on things that we intake, whether that be through social media or if that is through interacting with somebody in person. However, for me, I feel like if you are just overly offended, you can find something offensive about almost anything. what that's really pointing you to is a desire that you have to do something different within yourself. You may be offended by this person's presentation or their expression because you desire to present and express yourself in a different way. You desire to break the mold, to get out of the box, to step out of the shell that you may be living in. That insecurity is really hiding behind that offense. So the first thing you can do to solve that problem is to stop taking things so personally. How somebody else expresses themselves, how somebody else chooses to present themselves is really nothing to do with you, unless you truly do identify with how they express and present themselves, and that's something that you want to do, but you feel that you can't do it. That's the only way that you could really take it personally or make it personal. So if that's not you, why are you taking it so personally? Why are you feeling attacked and triggered? 90% of the things that we're exposed to or that happens to us or around us, it's not personal. We're just the specific person who might have been chosen or put in the situation to experience that circumstance. Here's the thing, we all have the power to shift reality, but most of us are not conscious of that power. The way you can take your power back from being offended and having your insecurities hide behind that offense is to just make changes in yourself first. You're not going to be able to change anything else until you start with you. So I'm just going to ask this question. What's something that offends you right now in 2025? How can you change the perspective and the lens of your offense and start to see that as maybe a secret or a shadow desire that you can begin exploring now? Alright, so the next top indicator of insecurity was having to prove things to people. Now, this one here is something that I've seen in a lot of friends, definitely people that I've dated as well, and also just like people that I may have associated with or that I'm not necessarily close to, but it's just kind of like you know them. You know, you just know of them, right? They may follow you on social media, whatever, right? It's a very weird experience when you're like, I'm just going to use the example of close friends, right? It's a very weird experience when you're close friends with somebody and y'all are just having a casual conversation, and then something that you said becomes like a personal goal for them to achieve, or something that was talked about becomes like a point to prove or a competition. Okay, sis. Okay, bro, you might be a little insecure. Like, you did not have to go that hard. Like, I believed you when you said what you said. Or, dang, even if I said that, you didn't have to take it literally and go do it. There's been instances where like, I'm just going to use some rough examples because it's not that, like, I don't want to be too verbatim, but I've kind of mentioned this in other videos, you know, like when you talk, like I said, when you have conversations and you may talk about personal goals or desires, right? Like, I've had conversations with friends like, oh, you know, I want to have this type of house, and oh, I think I want to get this type of tattoo, and oh, I think I want to, you know, whatever type of desires that I've talked about with them. Like, I've had multiple friends pop up and they're like, oh, and I might not have talked to them in a long time, but it's like, oh, by the way, I'm married now. Oh, by the way, this is my house. Oh, by the way. And it's like, okay, why are you proving this stuff to me? Like, that's great. I'm so happy for you. But like, why do you feel the need to, like, you know, it's kind of like, it's basically like asking someone, did I do it right? Did I do the thing? Look, I'm just using my phone, but look, did I do the thing right that you were talking about? Did I do it right? It's like, huh? Like, just live your life. Why are you worried about aligning with my expectations? That's weird, you know? Like, to me, it's weird. And I can see why it's not weird, because, you know, there's other ways to look at things than just that one way, which I'm not going to talk about today. But, you know, God has worked on me to just not be so critical of people that do need a lot more validation. But that's another topic for another day. The point is that you may be very insecure if you need to prove things to people. And I'm not saying you won't ever prove anything to anybody, but if that's like your way of life, is like, if somebody says something, I'm gonna go do it and then I'm gonna show them that I did it. That's like, that's an indicator that something needs to be fixed. There's this thing that I even do where it's like, this is about me more so standing up for myself. And, you know, like, when people talk shit about me, I do this thing where it's like, oh, you were talking shit, right? Okay, but I leveled up. You were talking shit, but I put in work. You were talking shit, but I did the thing that you would never be able to do, right? I guess me, like, non-verbally clapping back, you know, like, I do that a lot, but it's not necessarily because I'm insecure. It's actually more so like shutting the haters up, right? That could be seen as an insecurity, but that's not really what I'm talking about, because I don't really see that as insecure. I see that as like, I'm standing up for myself, and I'm not gonna let you label me or speak about me in a way saying I can't do this or that and the third. I'm not gonna let you just say that and allow it to be even a thought of truth, because I'm gonna prove you wrong, right? However, the insecurity in that could be the fact that I needed to prove anything at all, right? Being truly grounded, truly secure in yourself means that sometimes you just gotta shut the silly shit down immediately. Like, when you know something is not true about you, when you know that's not who you are, you just don't even entertain it. I think in the past, that need to prove somebody wrong, even though it didn't stem from necessarily a place of needing validation or, you know, saying, look what I did, you know, do you like it? Is it good enough? Is this what you were talking about? Look, I did it. You know, it's not even that, but it's more so of like a defense mechanism. However, when you're more secure in yourself, you just can shut things down immediately and not even entertain it. You know, sometimes the fact that we are even entertaining the need to prove something, we're even entertaining the act of proving something, can allow us to wallow in insecurity. Stop seeking approval and validation, especially from people who they don't make you feel validated in the first place. They may constantly deny you. They may constantly ridicule you and doubt you. Maybe they were not even looking for you to meet or exceed their expectation in the first place. Like that example that I gave you guys of just having conversations with friends about our goals, dreams, etc. And then all of a sudden, it turns into this weird little competitive thing of like, remember we had this conversation? Yeah, I did that. I got that. I'm doing that. And it's like, sis, calm down. Just live your life. Just live your life. It was never a it never was a competition. It was a conversation. Hold on, you know? So, you know, it's kind of more so like this energy of like, recognize who you're dealing with. You know, like, who is in front of you? Who are you dealing with? Is that person doubting you? Is this person that you're trying to prove stuff to ridiculing you? Is this person that you're trying to prove stuff to constantly denying you? Is this person that you're trying to prove stuff to not even trying to, they haven't even said they have this expectation of you, and you're just performing, and nobody even is looking at you like that? Maybe they just genuinely are connecting with you as a person and not as a competitor or a teacher or somebody that has set a mark for you, right? Are you allowing yourself to authentically connect with that person, or are you so insecure that you feel like you have to prove something to be in relationships with people? Another solution to this problem where you need to prove stuff to people is to really strengthen your connection with yourself, with your Ori, know who your higher self is, and get connected with Source. Because Source is always going to validate and confirm. That's one of my favorite things. Confirm everything that you need for your life and yourself to be the best you. So when you learn how to see and hear and feel, just totally experience God's validation, God's confirmation, and the confirmation that we get from our ancestors and our guides, when you learn how to experience that, you won't be looking to your friends and your family and your co-workers and anybody else you can name to get those things that you need. When God confirms it, so many other people will confirm it. Thousands of people will confirm it. Okay? It doesn't matter all the time what the people around you have to say. Alright, this is one of my favorite indicators of insecurity. These are things that you could watch this and you could be looking for things that maybe you're doing that you know, ooh, I didn't know that was insecurity hiding behind whatever it is, right? You could be watching this and you could be that person. However, you could also be the person who is constantly attacked. Okay, because this is me. So you could be that person who's constantly attacked by insecure people, and you're not always able to figure out, like I said at the beginning of this video, you're not always able to figure out, is it me or is it them, right? I'm giving you the indicators of insecurity so that you can know that it's not you. So there's two ways that you can really watch this video and intake this information. You're going to have to decide which way that is, all right? So let's move on though. One of my favorite ones, you aim to humble and belittle people or bring them down a notch. Ooh, honey. I think this is self-explanatory. You know, I definitely think there is the possibility of feeling yourself too much, you know, being too prideful, taking up too much space. You know, you always got to be the center of attention. Yeah, that is an issue. I've met people like that too. But there's another issue where you never can be centered. You never can feel pride in yourself. You never can be proud of yourself. You never can be excited about, you know, things that you enjoy or whatever. You can't share things that you enjoy or that you're excited about, because there's always somebody around you ready to shut the shit down, ready to hate on you, ready to dim your light, ready to, you know, make it seem like it's not all that, it's not a big deal, right? And I don't have to go into too much detail about that, but the solution to this indicator here, whether you're the person experiencing the belittling or you're the person doing the belittling. The solution is to surround yourself with a better quality of people. Everybody thinks they're the shit until they get around people who are more elevated. If you spend your time around weirdos and lowlifes, then when you get around people who are confident, when you get around people who are purpose driven, when you get around people who are inspired and inspirational, you're gonna feel triggered. You're gonna feel like you need to dim their light because your light is dim. Because maybe you're not the star in this setting. Because maybe you're now around people who are supposed to elevate you, who can elevate you, and who will if you had the perspective to see the opportunity, the expansion. If you were not in a hateful spirit, and if you were not a hater. But you're blocking your own self up because, you know, you're walking around people who challenge you. You're walking around people who make you feel intimidated, make you feel like you have to step it up a little bit. And guess what? Maybe you do. Right? The solution to not feeling like you have to dim anybody's light, not feeling like you have to humble people, is to expand, is to go new places, see new things, try new things, get out of your comfort zone, get more uncomfortable. Insecurity can hide behind offense. You know, sometimes some of us are offended. Behind that offense is all the insecurities that we've been holding on to. Insecurity can hide behind your comfort zone too. If you are too comfortable somewhere, if you are too comfortable with your routine and, you know, the tradition of what you always did with your family or what you always do with whatever groups of people, right? Your co-workers, your job environment, your friend, that comfort zone can really be a nice, warm, cozy blanket for your insecurities to hide behind and hide up under, right? And so when you get into environments that are new, fresh, and that will challenge you or that intimidate you, and you get around people that are, you know, the same way, you might become that hater. You might become that person that, you know, it's not all that, you know, you might have that type of energy when really it's you that's not all that. It's you that could step it up a little bit to be in the environment that may be pushing you to expand and grow. Even if it's not even the environment, but it's just the people. You are too competitive, overly competitive. This kind of can go back to what I was talking about with needing to prove yourself. So it's a little bit different. You know, being overly competitive is not necessarily that you have to prove yourself all the time. It's more so just like a lot of the things that I've talked about encompassed into one. Yeah, you need to prove yourself, but you also want to be like, you want to remain, you know, the topic of discussion. You don't want to share the spotlight with anybody. You don't want your light to be dimmed at all. Like, and let me just say this, you know, some of the most insecure people that I've come across so far in my life have been the people that you would think on first impression are like super confident and they are so secure in themselves and they have it all figured out or whatever. You know, you would think that those people are not insecure, but a lot of people have a false sense of confidence that really is just more so of a performance, and it's not true security within themselves. A person that is more performative, right, and they're not truly secure and they have a false sense of confidence, this is the person most times that is overly competitive. Competition is a necessary part of life. You know, when you look at birds and different animals, they have mating rituals. The animals are competing for the mate, you know, like when you go into jobs and schools, oftentimes they're using your credentials and your stats for you to compete for a position, right? When songs and movies are ranked, people are competing for awards, right? But competition is kind of a byproduct of your authenticity and your skill set. It shouldn't be the motivator, and you shouldn't be rooted in competition. You know, like if you just happen to authentically do something, I would use this video for example. You know, if I just happened to already be on a family vacation and I knew I was coming to this beautiful property, guess what? Why wouldn't I film content for my spiritual pages at this property that the whole purpose is spiritual? But a competitive person may look at this and say, oh, she did that, I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna go film a video here and here and here and here, and now what? It's like, but nobody asked you to do any of that. Why are you rooted and driven by outdoing the next person? That's what I'm talking about. There's an insecurity there behind being overly competitive, trying to always outdo the next person, never wanting to just be like, okay, you know, it's okay, yeah, they did something great, I'm so happy for them, like, wow, that's amazing, and just moving on. Like, again, feeling triggered, feeling offended. But unlike that first example, you're not just offended, you're not just triggered by what the person is doing, saying, wearing, etc. It's how they're expressing themselves. You're also driven to act and do things based on what somebody else is doing or not do, right? Because let me not forget what they're not doing, because a lot of people do the opposite of what someone else is doing to try to disguise that insecurity that's hiding. They wearing orange, well, I'm gonna wear what's the opposite of orange? I think it's purple. They wearing orange, well, I'm gonna wear purple. They wearing their natural hair, well, I'm gonna wear my hair straight. Why not just do something that you authentically like and authentically identify with and authentically love and are passionate about? You shouldn't be driven by competition. You shouldn't be driven and motivated by outshining somebody, because if you are insecure and you need to work through that. The best way to work through being overly competitive is to focus on yourself. Most times, being overly competitive, having to outdo people, it just is an indicator that your focus is off. And that's why I spent so much time delivering a message that you shouldn't be rooted in competition. You shouldn't be driven by outdoing somebody or, you know, outshining somebody. You shouldn't be rooted and driven by those things. You should be rooted and driven in your authenticity. You should be rooted and driven by purpose. You should be rooted and driven by the things that Spirit connects you with. Spirit says, hey, this is for you. This is what I want you to do. Constantly watching and obsessing over what other people are doing with their life, you know, it really is just a distraction, and it really takes you further away from yourself. You can make huge strides when you just turn off all the distractions. This is why one of my first videos of 2025 was lessons learned offline, because when I just said, you know what, I'm done, I'm pulling away from all of this, I made some of the biggest strides that I've made in a while. And it's not to say that I haven't gradually worked towards those things over the previous years, but it's just to say that I finally got to the breakthroughs that I really needed this year because I wasn't distracted as much or at all. So the more you focus on yourself, the more you realize that the only competition is yourself. Furthermore, you'll realize even the relationship with yourself is not a competition. It's evolution. It's elevation. And your journey, in your personal journey, you're naturally supposed to get better. Like, you're not supposed to stay the same until you die. You're not supposed to, I mean, you can, you know, but you're supposed to want a better house, a better car. You're supposed to want, you know, better technology, and you're supposed to want better quality in your life. But if you're basing your life and your activities and whatever else off of what someone else is doing, you'll never get the quality that truly aligns with you. Being overly competitive, there's no fulfillment in that except maybe the little tiny bit of gratification that you may get from temporarily outshining somebody or temporarily dimming somebody's light. That's temporary. But true fulfillment, long-term gratitude, comes from that alignment, that passion, that drive from the connection that you have with Source, with your ancestors, with your guides, that are constantly helping navigate you into greater and greater purpose in your life. You give up on your ideas, your dreams, your desires, your goals way too quickly. Way too quickly. I've noticed that a lot of people have great ideas. And this is kind of one of those sleeper keys of insecurity, because it can really sneak up on anybody. You know, like when you find yourself constantly talking about something, but you haven't even taken the first step. And for those of you guys who have been watching my content for years, you'll know that I've been talking about a lot of times, literally, Spirit is just trying to get us to take the first step. Like, once we just try and do something, anything towards our ideas, towards our dreams, our goals, it's like all we got to do is get a taste of that momentum one time, and we're unstoppable. And suddenly we're getting all these downloads, and we're getting all these messages, and we're getting all these assignments from Source, just because we finally decided to make a move, right? But if you can't even do one thing, small, big, or in between, towards whatever it is that your vision is, it's gonna be really, really hard to break that insecurity and that shadow spirits that lurk within you. I don't have to, you know, over explain this one, because it's really that simple. But the solution and the healing is gonna come from what I already said, taking the first step. But it's not just enough to take the first step. You also have to take daily measures. And this is something that for a while I've been trying to implement, is not just having goals and not just doing the big things, but also doing the little things. I have taken a lot of my power back into my hands simply by taking control of my day. Something that I like to do is think about, what can I do today that will allow me to get closer to my goals, to my dreams, right? And this is an easy way of that you can shift your thinking into the present moment, into the now, and you can also shift your power there too. What can you do today that can just get you one step closer to where you really want to be? This is how you can slowly but surely break that insecurity within yourself, and also be an inspiration and a road opener for others is when you take daily measures and you don't stop at talking about the ideas and brainstorming and wishing and dreaming and hoping. You actually book the flight. You actually buy the new laptop. You actually start the YouTube channel. You actually start the podcast. You actually go record the song. You actually go take the course. You actually teach the course. You know, you actually write the book. There's so many things. You actually plant the garden. You know, so many things that we just talk about in conversation, right? But we're not putting action to it. And so we slowly drain our ashe. We slowly weaken our solar plexus. We slowly lower our confidence through conversing and not acting and not manifest. You wait for external cues to motivate and validate your dreams and desires. This definitely sounds like some of the other ones that we've already went over. This is all based off of my experiences dealing with a lot of insecure people, a lot of shadows and demons jumping out at and attacking me over the years. And like I said, me really going to spirit, like, is it me? Like, am I doing something wrong, or is there something deeper to this that I'm missing? One of those deeper things I was shown was like a lot of people that are insecure, you can identify that because they're waiting for something to give them the green light, right? They're waiting to see who else is going to jump on it. They're waiting to see, for some of us, you know, those who may not necessarily be struggling with insecurity, they're waiting to see what we're going to do, right? I've had so many people like watching or lurking my platforms, and when they see me do something, next thing I know, here they are. They've popped up and did the same thing, you know. One perspective of this is that maybe that person sees inspiration in you or me, or sees inspiration in that person or place or thing that they're seeking that green light from, right? Maybe they see inspiration, but here's the thing, your inspiration should come from tapping in with source. Again, just like with being overly competitive, it should come from being secure in yourself, rooted in yourself, inspired within your own journey. It shouldn't come from watching, lurking, and monitoring what other people are doing and then saying, okay, so now that they're doing this, I'm gonna go do that. Like, really? It's 2025. It's time to stop waiting. When you change your reality. You open your own roads. You can have other people do that for you. Trust me, I've had it happen to me many times. However, you can open your own roads too. Don't be asleep on that. Needing external cues to validate the moves you're gonna make and validate the dreams and desires that you have for yourself is kind of a mixture of the points I made with needing to prove yourself and being overly competitive. It's like, you know, somebody who is constantly waiting on that green light, they may be a little competitive, but they also may have insecurity masking as a competitive nature, but they also may need to prove things to people, right? Which, like I discussed earlier, that can show up in a competitive spirit. However, this leads me to another point, that another way that you can heal that insecurity, that wound, and you can also protect yourself further, and that's guarding your gateways. Again, a lot of these triggers, a lot of these insecurities that we can develop and that we can kind of hold on to is ultimately fueled by the continual watching, the continual monitoring, the continual exposure to people that we assume are more powerful than us, are more motivated than us, are more magical than us, are more gifted than us. I'm a firm believer that there are some people that are better than you. Like, you know, because some people, they just have certain gifts and abilities that you don't have and you will never have them. But that doesn't rob you of your unique abilities and your unique gifts that you could be honing and mastering right now. So it's when we turn off the screens, it's when we log off the apps, you know, it's when we focus and hone in on ourselves that we can really tap into divine instruction and divine information, divine downloads that will guide us into a deeper relationship with our purpose, with our power, with our gifts. You're fueling your own self-doubt when you have to constantly go to somebody's YouTube channel, when you constantly have to book a reading, when you are constantly pulling tarot cards on yourself, or when you're scrolling down your TL looking for a sign, you know, to do something that you already know you need to do. Instead of looking to a screen, right? Instead of looking outside of yourself to find the green light that you're looking for, you should be looking for the way your body feels when you are doing a certain activity. You should be looking for signs and confirmation from God, from your ancestors. You should be looking for the joy that you have when you're doing something that you've always wanted to do or you love doing once a week. And it's like, okay, well, if I love doing this once a week, let me try to do this twice a week. Let me try to do this 3 times a week. You try to maximize the things that bring you to the highest vibration. The confirmation and the green light is in those things that just make time evaporate, you know? And the last one that I really want to discuss, you are always borrowing other people's ideas instead of following your own. Now, this top indicator here is also one of my pet peeves. You know, we're all inspired by somebody. Trust me, I know very good and well. Imitation is not inspiration. Okay, let me just say it like that, real short and sweet. Imitating your favorite influencers, imitating people that you watch, imitating your friends, imitating family members. First off, it's a little weird. At your big age, okay, if you are over 18, you should be trying to get in touch with yourself and find what's unique about you. We all can have that kind of childish nature to try to emulate somebody else or do it like they did, right? But at a certain point, you just look weird and you should really almost feel ashamed of yourself, you know? Honestly, you know, if you are always borrowing other people's ideas, and it also lead to a lack of integrity, because I've had a couple people, you know, they're coming on my platforms, whether it's spiritual or not, and they're taking ideas and they're not even, you know I'm not going to get credit for anything, for everything. That would be kind of weird if literally every single time I did something and somebody liked it, they were like, and I got this from this girl over here. Like, you know, I don't need that much credit, because I've actually had somebody do that before, and first of all, that person was a troll, but you know, it's weird either way. It's weird when somebody's constantly stealing from you and acting like you don't exist. It's also equally weird and obsessive when somebody is constantly crediting you for everything, and it's like, okay, thanks, but like now you're just being weird, because now it's like you're exposing your obsession. So the medicine for no longer having to hide behind imitation, having to borrow ideas, trying to emulate or embody somebody else's energy, somebody else's path, somebody else's calling. The solution for that is to stop being scared to be original, and let me add this, imperfect as well. A lot of times we're scared to put our full self out there because our full self is imperfect. Our full self, it is not maybe the trendy, clean-cut influencer that we see online. It's a real person. If we weren't scared to be that real person, we would find so much more beauty, so much more talent, so much more creativity in that. And it's not gonna look like the people that maybe you're inspired by 100% or all the time. It might not look like that, right? You know, I wish that personally, I wish I had the ability to make short, sweet, cute little videos that were 20 minutes long or 15 minutes long. Look, I just don't have that ability. I just don't. I'm long-winded. Once I get going on a topic, I could just talk, and you know, sometimes spirit just drops things off and it's like, I know you finished that point, but go back to this, right? I wish I could do that, but you know what? The fact that I am long-winded, the fact that I can't necessarily deliver these short and cute little 10 to 15 minute messages, you know, that's what somebody needs. And if I'm just authentic about that and, okay, look, this is what y'all gonna get. Y'all might get a 40-minute video. Y'all might get an hour-long video. But guess what? That might be the video that somebody needs to shift their entire mind for the next 6 months to get them leveled up to where they need to be. But what if I was being so hard on myself and, oh, I need to make more videos that are like this or like that or like shorter? So here's the thing, you know, when the more that you embrace your authenticity, the less you're scared to just be yourself. Hey, I'm making content. I'm about to be inside though. Huh? I'm making content, but I'm about to be inside though. All right. In like a few minutes. In a few minutes. Okay, where was I? So yeah, the more you show up as your full self, as your authentic self, the more that you embrace your imperfections and just be present with you, guess what? The more you're naturally gonna evolve. Like I said earlier, taking that one step forward, not hiding behind the insecurity, not using something else as a mask, right? Not using offense, not using comfort, not using competition as a mask for what you really need to deal with. The reason why you're really not aligned with your highest form of creativity. Once you show up fully, you will naturally evolve. You'll naturally receive assignments. You'll naturally receive divine downloads and instruction on what to do and where to go next. But you have to stop being scared to be original. Stop being scared to be imperfect. Stop being scared to be yourself. And stop looking for a blueprint or a roadmap that gives you a step-by-step copycat instructions on how to build your empire.